What is up, everybody? How y'all doing? This is another episode of the Hoof Live. It's a special, we got a special show for you guys tonight. I know if you have been watching us on social media, you know that we have a very special guest by the name of Benjamin Allbright. He's an NFL insider, beat reporter, former scout. I mean, you name it. He's kind of done it in terms of being close to NFL teams and circles and knowing what's going on before the public does. We have him here tonight. We're going to be talking some Broncos. We're going to be talking some Bills. I mean, it's a great day, Anthony, because training camp has begun.
Woo, woo. It's a little bit closer to the NFL season, and today is one of those days where you just can't help but be excited. Guys are showing up. We're seeing them in practice. Well, physically not seeing them, unfortunately, at St. John Fisher for training camp, but there will be a few open practices, and it just feels different. It's like the countdown starts today, right? It's on now.
Hey, and we got more stuff to talk about than Cole Beasley, right? We can talk about the team. We don't have to talk about what he's got going on and all that.
Football, please.
Let's talk stuff. We're going to talk football tonight, and we got a very special guest to do that. Man, we're definitely loving everybody coming in. Richard Rush says, let's go. We got Zeus Carver. My guy says bigly excited with the Samuel L. Jackson icon there. I love it. Samuel Jackson actually he's kind of from my hometown, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee. He went to high school at one of the performing arts schools. Yeah, Samuel's got Chattanooga ties. Had to throw that in there for the fam. What's up, Joe, man? How you doing, bro? We got some people coming in here. Yes. So be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. This is the Cover One Network. All right, we're keeping it real, man. We got shows, Monday through Friday, and we got all kinds of analysis. Man, all our guys grind, man. We have so much fun. So be sure to like, follow, subscribe. This is the Hoof Live. Again, you are watching the Cover One Network. And we got Trask. What's up, man? He says football can't come soon enough. You ain't lying, bro. I tell you that right now. And we got Y says go Bills. So yeah, man, it's a jam-packed show, man. It's a big week in the NFL. Training camp is here. I mean, there's so many storylines that kind of just unfold as we get into training camp. Preseason, we're about to see actual football. Like, I can't express to you how excited I am to see actual football. It's gonna be crazy. And the fact that everybody's got the Bills in their top three.
Yeah.
Top three teams in the league. It's
legit,
crazy,
man. We've never been in this position, but at least not in our lifetime. It's not in many decades here, and it's a totally new feeling. It's a totally new place. Now we got to keep the momentum going. You got to live up to expectations. It's a different kind of atmosphere, and I'm loving it. I cannot wait for this.
Well, before we continue, let's be sure to talk about Underdog Fantasy. This is Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play fantasy football, fantasy sports, including best ball, daily drafts, and pick 'em. You can start drafting in minutes for a big shot at cash prizes. And if you enter the promo code COVER1, they will match up to $25 on your first deposit. That's what's up, Underdog Fantasy. Go win you a little bit of money, take your girl out, whatever you got to do.
We're pumped to get ready for that in the season, and you're going to want to sign up sooner rather than later just to start getting a feel for it. And I'm telling you, all the guys at Cover One are excited for this. We're going to be posting our ideas and our parlays, and it's going to be an exciting time, and hopefully we all benefit together. Or you can play against us if you don't like it. So see if you can do better, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that during the year for sure.
And look who we have in the house, Mr. Benjamin Allbright, NFL extraordinaire, Mr. Madden player himself. He will challenge anybody to a game of Madden out there. So if you think you got it, he gonna give it to you. Ben, how's it going, man?
It's going pretty well, man. I didn't know you were a Chattanooga guy. My youngest brother was born in Chattanooga. We lived out there for a while. Lived in Winchester, so I didn't know you were. I didn't know we'd been close to each other there. But
yeah, dude, I'm a Chattanooga kid, man. I grew up there, lived there for 18 years. So yeah, I moved out here from Chattanooga actually after college. So I've been out here for a good minute, but my ties are from Chat for sure.
Gotcha. No, I didn't know that. So yeah, we were neighbors at one point.
Heck yeah. And we're actually neighbors right now because I'm here in Denver. Okay. Anthony, he just freaking moved to New York. Our other co-host, Eric, just moved to New York. So, Ben, it's just me and you out here holding the fort down, man.
Hey, I'm going to miss Denver a lot. I love it there. Even being a Bills fan, I loved Broncos radio, listening to local radio, listening to the local reports, sports, following the Broncos. I'm still going to be following them, I feel, coming into this season, especially for them. They're in a completely different place than the Bills. They always have been. When I first got there, they had Peyton Manning and were winning. And now it's kind of, in a different role for sure for both teams. But it's always fun to talk and think about the Broncos along with the Bills. And when they play, it's even more exciting for us. So.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be talking. So tonight we're going to be talking some Broncos. We're going to be talking some Bills. And again, Ben, when you got to pop out of here, just let us know, man, and you're good to go. But let's get this thing started so we don't keep the fans waiting. But before we do anything else, let's go ahead and go to What's Poppin'. This is the segment of the show where we talk about the latest and the greatest in the NFL news that's coming up. So with that being said, our first topic is, all right, we got our first topic here, and it is Davante Adams stops contract talks with Green Bay. Now, we did see Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that dropped today or was it yesterday, but Aaron Rodgers is going to be playing for Green Bay. A lot of speculation about him being traded. I guess that's not going to happen now, and apparently they're going to kind of let him off the hook next year. So Aaron Rodgers might be a Denver Bronco at some point. We'll see. I mean, we thought something was going to happen earlier in the season. I know fans out here, just talking to my friends and stuff, Aaron Rodgers is at the top of the list. Deshaun Watson is at the top of the list. Ben, I don't know what you're at liberty to speak about, but Davante Adams, now that Rodgers is in the fold, do you think that, with the idea that Aaron Rodgers is leaving Green Bay next year, do you think Davante Adams is on his way out potentially?
I think that's a strong possibility. They may get a contract done, but I doubt it. I think Adams wants out as well. And so I think he and Rodgers kind of came back to give it one more run since they've been to back-to-back NFC championships. I think that a large part of that, getting Cobb back in the fold. I don't know if that's already happened yet, but it will. Get Randall Cobb back in the fold there, and then they're going to run it back one more time. Rodgers is going to be done with Green Bay after this year, and he's going to play somewhere else, and it'll probably be Denver. But we got a lot of time on that, still to come. As far as Adams goes, I know there are some rumors about him and the Raiders, and I can say that. The Raiders would love to have him. I don't know that he's the difference though in that particular sense that the Raiders suddenly being successful, because the Raiders it's a defensive problem. So, I think I don't think he's back in Green Bay next year at this point. I mean, stuff can always change. It's fluid, but I don't think he's back in Green Bay next year at this juncture.
So let me ask you a question. So, I mean, from a fan's perspective, and then having, your insight, when a player like Aaron Rodgers says, I want, Randall Cobb, right? Do you think that they typically come into some type of handshake agreement saying, okay, I'm going to play for you, Green Bay, but you got to go get Randall Cobb however you can? And then the opposite team hearing that, it's like, okay, well, if I'm the owner or the GM, I'm going to hold on to, I'm going to try to milk you for everything I can, to let Randall Cobb go. Like, how do those exchanges work?
Well, I think in most cases you would. You try to get the maximum volume you could, value you could out of it. But in this particular case, Randall Cobb is actually the second largest cap hit for the Texans in the coming year. The contract that Bill O'Brien and Jack Easterby gave him was absolutely atrocious, like one of the worst all-time contracts I've ever seen. And so I think Houston would be happy to be rid of the contract. And so I think it'll wind up being a thing that's just beneficial for everyone.
Okay. And then speaking of the Houston Texans, nice little segue there. Deshaun Watson reports to training camp. I mean, I'm a big Deshaun Watson fan. I have nothing to do with whatever he's got going on off the field. That's not my place. But as a player, he's a damn good player. You never want to see players not be able to do their craft for whatever reason. I would love to see Deshaun Watson in a Denver Bronco uniform. That would be dope, in the next few years or however that works out, man. What do you think? And this is for both of you guys. What do you guys think? Can something be resolved this year with Deshaun Watson? Will he play because I'm thinking like, man, there's no way he's going to play. But then we've seen situations in the NFL where, again, tickets sell. I mean, it's just the way it is. So what do you guys think? Anthony, we'll start with you, and then Ben, we'll end with you there.
I don't have any kind of inside information, but I'll say that the NFL knows that they have screwed this up before in the past, and they kind of took control over the situation where they either can upfront suspend the player or put them on the whatever that list is. That's not the injured list, but the something is going on list. I forget what it's called. So you're inactive basically for the team. And I think that might be what happens in this case with Deshaun Watson, because the NFL cannot afford to let him play and then all these things that are being accused of him turn out to be true. And then it's like, oh, but we didn't know they were true, so we let him play until it came out. Especially, and that's going to be for the NFL, but also for the Houston Texans. At this point, they know Deshaun Watson is not going to be their long-term answer. He doesn't want to be there. They're in a rebuild mode. They just got a new coach. They're the worst team in the NFL. Deshaun Watson isn't going to help you with that. Getting draft picks will, if you can trade him, if he's going to play in the future. So I think they're both just ready to move on. And at this point, I don't expect Deshaun Watson to play this season, at least from an NFL standpoint. I hope that they find a way to do the right thing in the situation, which I think is let the legal system play out and not let him see the field, because they've caught in blowback with the Ray Rice situation and other situations like that in the past, where it's certainly been a black eye to the league, because it's like, oh, where are your values that you like to preach about?
Right.
So, yeah.
It's all about the shield. Ben?
Yeah, if he does play this year, it won't be in Houston. I'll say that.
Okay.
There's no way he plays there. He reported there just because he's still on the last year, the cheap part of his deal. So he was only owed $10 million this year. And that big contract extension doesn't even kick in until next year. So he reported so that contract can toll and he can get to that money quicker. And he was facing $50,000 a day fines, which when you're only making $10 million a year, $50,000 a day adds up pretty quick. So, it was a situation where it was obvious he was going to report. Now, he didn't want to play for the Texans. He's not going to. And then the NFL, the problem here is that the new CBA doesn't allow the commissioner to do the things unilaterally that he used to do. You have to have proof, or you have to have a criminal charge, something to that extent. And they don't have that right now. The NFL is not, they haven't cleared Deshaun Watson. They've started an investigation. They haven't gotten far enough into it yet to determine that anything happened that they need to put him on that list, which is the commissioner's exempt list.
Right. That's thank you.
Right. So at this juncture, because they hadn't even talked to Watson yet, they haven't talked to the accusers, they haven't talked to Watson yet, their investigation's going slowly. There are 23 civil suits and an additional 10 criminal complaints. The Houston police, they have a case open. They haven't filed charges yet. Doesn't mean they won't. Doesn't mean they will.
Okay.
But of those criminal complaints, some of those are not suing him civilly. They're just criminal complaints. So some of them are not. People saying they're in it for the money. Well, a couple of these people are just filed criminal complaints with no civil remuneration whatsoever. So, there's a lot hanging over the head. I can tell you the Broncos are not pursuing him, emphatically are not after him. Mm-hmm. So unless that entire situation were to be cleared up legally, there would be no effort on their part whatsoever. I know. What's that?
I was sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to ask if the Broncos aren't, which I agree, knowing a lot about the Broncos, that I wouldn't think that organization would pursue him under these circumstances. But do you think there is a team that would trade for him in this situation at this point? I mean, even Houston, do they have a benefit in trading him at this point? Will they still get 2 first-round picks for what most consensus would say when he's playing is a top 5 quarterback in the league?
Well, that's the question. I was just going to say that there are some teams that have inquired, Carolina, Philadelphia, and Miami. And Miami's where he wants to be. I know there was reports out there about him wanting Denver. Those are false.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He told Kareem Jackson that, I guess, in passing. But he and Kareem aren't close. I mean, they barely talk. And so this idea, that was just something on a podcast. Mm-hmm. The reality is he wants Miami, and he wants to reunite with his buddy Will Fuller, and and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of where that situation is, and where it sits. And there's the kind of the setup here for a possible Xavier Howard and draft picks kind of trade for Deshaun Watson, kind of situation brewing behind the scenes right now. But I'm not reporting that that's happening. I'm just saying that's kind of setting itself up behind the scenes. There are other teams that are after Xavier Howard too, and there's no risk to Miami. Like for instance, if Arizona trades for him, there's no risk to Miami in that case. You're not acquiring a potentially toxic asset, right? So, I don't know that he necessarily gets dealt. Houston's still asking the same thing they were asking back in February, which is 3 1s, 2 2s, and 2 players. I don't think you're going to get that. So. At least not with this stuff hanging over your head. I mean, what general managers committed career suicide by rolling the dice? Like, I mean, maybe you could get it on a steal of a deal. Like if Philly comes in at low balls and like, yeah, we'll take his rights off your hand for a second rounder, and like somebody balks and does it, that would be one thing. But I can't see anybody paying full price with all this hanging over his head. And Deshawn has played this about as poorly legally as he could with the I don't want NDAs. I don't want. No, you do. Get non-disclosure agreements and get it behind you. Who cares? People get caught up in the tawdry details, and then it's gone the next day, dude. Like that's how these scandals work. So if he is truly innocent, just pay him and go. Like that's the cost of doing business. Like you were an idiot for going out and getting 30 different massage people to massage you when you got a free team masseuse sitting right there, several of them on staff sitting right there. So that's on you. That's the cost of doing business.
Hey Ben, my guy is aching in pain, bro. He needs like serious rubbish, if you will. Okay, he needs.
Pun intended. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. No, with y'all. I mean, if I could have 30, I mean, I would love that. I mean, you kidding me? Shoot.
Yeah, I'm saying, 30 different masseuses over the course of a year. Like every player I've ever talked to is like, yeah, dude, that's weired, right? Because like I know, like one of my best friends is the body guy for the Broncos, right?
Okay.
And he these guys they'll come to him even after they switch teams. Like they'll book him when they come into town. But the guys get like one massage person, and they may have to go to a second or third if that first one doesn't work out. But that's about it. Like you just find that person that works, and that's it. You don't go to like 30 different masseuses, and all women, all booked off Instagram. This is not like team recommended massage. Dude, you got an issue, man. Like you got a problem. Knock it off. That's the cost of doing business.
Yeah,
that's a tax. That's a tax you pay when you get caught.
Listen, they got Bill Cosby. They got my guy Bill. They're going to come for you too, Deshawn. I mean, it's sad. It really is sad. I mean, you really do hope that him and his family, they recover. But, yeah, I agree, man. I didn't really look at it from that angle. I think it's, man, just take your lumps and move on, man. It's cost of doing business. But Xavier Howard, I mean, I know you mentioned him. Like, what can you tell us? Have you heard anything? What's going on in that situation? We just saw that news drop today. I don't know when you found out, but what are your thoughts on it?
It's been brewing for a minute. He just wants to be respected. He wants to be paid at a number that respects him. And he didn't want like a whole new deal or anything like that. He just wanted more guaranteed money, to kind of bump him up because he's the second highest paid corner on his own team. And the numbers bear out that he's a top 5 corner in the league, possibly like 1 or 2, depending on how you look at it. Mm-hmm. So, I think he's got a point. I think he's got a valid point. But he also signed the deal he's playing on. So unless the team, and his version is that the team was telling him they'd take care of him. Their version is, we weren't. And you know how that he said, she said stuff goes. There's 3 sides to every story: his, hers, and the truth. And so, I think with that situation, he's probably going to get dealt because I don't think he gave him an ultimatum a couple of days ago. They didn't do anything. So he posted that stuff, this evening or whatever, and went from there. There's some teams that are interested. Definitely Denver's not one of them. They've got plenty of corners, but there are teams like Arizona, Houston that need help, and would be very interested in something like that. So there's suitors for his services.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy that all this stuff is kind of dropping right before training camp. I meing, I even heard today, Chandler Jones is on the market, and they want to trade him. I mean, if I'm being a Bills fan, I would give a first round pick for somebody like Chandler Jones, guys like Xavier Howard. I mean, it just you don't see this kind of stuff, right before training camp drops. It's just if there was a market to be had, I mean, you would think that these teams would probably deal them, in prime off season, not right before training camp starts.
The difference this year is the new CBA has some pretty draconian rules about holdouts. And so now holding out is just not an option for players. Like the players got screwed in their CBA. They agreed to some heinous nonsense. But if you look at the holdout penalties, it's just not wise to hold out. So they don't have that leverage anymore. So now these guys show up and report, and you do what's instead of hold out, you hold in, right? So you come in and you just be toxic until they deal you,
Dang.
So that's what's going on right now. Like, you give an ultimatum, hey, you got 2 days to fix this, or I'm going to be the worst. I'm going to be on the bike. I'm going to be doing every interview out there. I'm going to be giving the game plan away. Like, you just got to make yourself. That's your leverage now. You got to make yourself so toxic that they will deal you.
I was going to say, if the player doesn't want to be there, they have ways to get out, whether the team likes it or not. And it probably ultimately is in the team's best interest to move on. It's going to be interesting to see what price you can get in that situation, right? Because if you're the team on the other side of it, you're like, well, how many days is it going to take for this guy to be toxic before you take a second-round pick instead of a first-round pick,
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out, especially with a guy like Howard. As a Bills fan, we like the idea of getting rid of Xavier Howard, although, his biggest question is, can he stay as healthy as he was last year moving forward? And then, but the talk of Deshawn Watson coming to Miami is certainly one that we Bills fans are not looking forward to or don't like hearing about, that for sure, because Tua, there's a lot of uncertainty there, obviously, and that is one of the things that gives the Bills an edge on an otherwise complete team in Miami for the most part. So yeah, those are interesting comments, and it's going to be a fun preseason, really, the games, but also the training camps, just to see what happens with all these player situations, especially now that the Aaron Rodgers, because that was the only talk going on in the entire offseason, it seemed,
right,
with all these other players. Now that situation is settled moving forward, some of these other names are going to come up, and we'll see what happens.
All right, so let's segue into our next part here. We're gonna jump into our segment. We call it the Inside Slant. So this is a different one tonight. So we got Ben in here, so we're gonna talk some Broncos and Bills, kind of a little crossover thing. Ben, if you have any questions about the Bills that you want to field or anything like that, by all means do. But let's jump into this. So we when you look at the Broncos, I mean, we follow the Broncos because, I live here. Anthony, we all did. We kind of keep an eye on the Broncos and what's going on. And the overarching theme of their season last year were just so many injuries, man. Like Von Miller, Courtney, Sutton. I mean, it just did not stop.
Before they even got off the ground, those two were gone. And that's pretty the two biggest offensive players other than Drew Lock, I guess, or two biggest sides of the ball there when you're talking about that team last year, even before the injury at this time.
So you had 31 different players showed up on the injury list last year. That's over half your squad. What has there been any changes to their training regimen, or is just bad luck season? What do you attribute to that?
I think they just look at it as a bad luck season. They've tried to change a few things here and there and see what they can do about trying to make things easier on guys, that kind of stuff, so they're not doing it. But most of them were freak injuries, like Von Miller rolling his ankle and then tearing something as he fell backwards over a piece of equipment, right before the season started. Cortland Sutton got injured the first game of the season. That's your best offensive and defensive player right there. And it was just downhill from there. Then Jarrell Casey got hurt, AJ Bouye, then he got popped for the PEDs. The entire defensive line went out. Bradley Chubb was coming back off the ACL, and then basically your entire secondary outside of Justin Simmons got hurt. They were down to, by the time we played the Bills last year, they were starting two guys off the street and corner 6 from the start of the season. The other two corners had been with the team like a week, and one of them was a rookie. It was CB6, and then I think it was like Nate Hairston and Parnell Motley, who had been with the team like a week, and they got absolutely just slaughtered by Buffalo. It was a backbreaking game.
Yeah, no, it was.
Buffalo wouldn't beat them. Yeah, Buffalo would beat them anyway.
Hey, didn't you guys have like a wide receiver play quarterback in the game last year?
Yeah, it got so bad. A wide receiver played quarterback, Kendall Hinton. And it wasn't just a wide receiver; it was a practice squad wide receiver. Who was called up to play quarterback. They were trying to petition the NFL to let an assistant coach play. That's how bad it was at that point. So, Rob Calabrese. They were trying to get him to play, and the NFL denied it. So, it was just a rough break season, and you have so much youth on that team. Like, you look at that offense, and you got Cortland Sutton, who is still on his rookie deal. You've got Judy going into year 2, KJ Hamler going into year 2, Noah Fant going into year 3 now. Albert Okwuegbunam last year was a rookie. Right. It was just youth across the board, and the veterans that you have were new to the team, right? So you bring in Melvin Gordon. He's a veteran, but he's new to the team.
Right.
You had DeMar Dotson at right tackle, new to the team. And so it really they just didn't have leadership. They just didn't have those voices that could be accountable on top of the mounting injuries that just kept coming in. And it just created a bad situation. There were guys out there playing, there were guys out there busting their butts, and there were guys playing well. I mean, the Broncos, for all the problems last year, they're still the number one red zone defense in the NFL. And they laid out the blueprint to beat Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's the same blueprint that the Bucs used in the Super Bowl. The Bucs totally changed their defense because they're a man defense.
Right.
And they switched to playing that quarters match that Vic Fangio plays with the 34 under quarters match that he plays, and they switched that in the Super Bowl, and it worked. Now Denver didn't beat Kansas City, but they came close. Like that second game, they came, even with all the injuries, they came close, and they kind of laid out the blueprint. And so it's interesting because the Chargers made their hire kind of based on that too. Like, well, we got Mahomes in our division. Let's go get Brandon Staley, who's a Vic Fangio disciple, to bring that defense here to the Chargers to go up against it too. So it's going to be interesting to see now that Pat Mahomes is seeing that defense a lot, if he's able to like overcome it or whatever. But that game plan seemed to kind of slow Kansas City down a little bit.
And I'll have to go out and say, I think the key to stopping Mahomes is kind of containing them in the pocket. And you got two edge rushers that are just dynamite. Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. I mean, these guys are elite. And it's a recipe for success for the Broncos. I mean, that's one of the silver lining things that you have to look at with these division matchups, and the fact that, okay, Denver sees them twice a year. So absolutely, they're, it's a copycat league. Teams are going to be, like you mentioned, that quarters defense. Yeah, I mean, the Super Bowl 31-9, that Super Bowl was just nasty. I mean, that defensive line just ate them apart. I mean, they had two tackles that were gone. So, yeah, it was crazy. So, all right. So we saw that the Broncos, tons of injuries, right? Von Miller, Courtney Sutton. I mean, I'm sure real quick, just for fans of those guys, how are they progressing coming into the season? Are they healthy? Are they going to be, lightweight, not doing that much work? Or what's the prognosis on them?
Von's ready to go. I saw him today, talked to him for a while. He's ready to go. Saw Cortland Sutton as well. He said he's 99%. He's trying to be a little cautious because they're not even putting pads on for the first 6 practices. So he's trying to be a little cautious through that and kind of, just test things out. But he feels like he's going to be 100% by the time they hit pads.
Okay. And
it's interesting. Those two players are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum too. Von Miller, the established veteran who, still has high expectations for his play, but Sutton, the young guy who's coming up, both of them coming off injuries, still key pieces to this team. Do you have any thoughts on your expectations for the two of them coming in? Or, I mean, we know, being in the Denver media and hearing things on, the reports and everything, that the expectations are still high for this team, at least from Denver fans. So
should be. I mean, it would be if their defense isn't top 5, if they're healthy, if their defense isn't top 5, that would be a massive disappointment. On the offensive side of the ball, really hinges on whether or not you get growth out of Drew Lock. If you don't, then Teddy Bridgewater takes over. That's kind of, I mean, that's whatever. Teddy's never been, anything. His best season was last year. He threw 15 touchdowns. I mean, that's his best season. And he's played parts of seasons and 3 full seasons. Drew Lock had 16. Drew Lock had 16 touchdowns in 12 games last year. So I mean, it's in terms of, you need to get the quarterback that's going to score you points, but at the same time, they can't put you at risk. Now, Teddy Bridgewater, for a lot of people, they say he's the safer option, but you go back and look at the numbers last year. The guy had 11 interceptions and like 8 fumbles. That's more turnovers than Drew Lock had. So I'm not sure that he's necessarily the safer option. So I think what they're hoping for is a big leap out of Drew Lock with some continuity in the offense this year. And if they get that, then they'll be good. And Cortland Sutton was his guy. Like, that was his target.
Right.
He trusted Sutton. So not having that really hurt him a lot. And he didn't develop the same rapport with the other guys. And then Judy kept dropping the ball, and that was a problem. So they're expecting some leaps out of the youth on offense. And if they get that, they feel like they can make some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch the Broncos when he had Cortland Sutton, I mean, they were moving. I mean, you had that Drew Lock was on the sideline rapping Jeezy. He was so happy. I didn't see none of that last year. He wasn't rapping nothing. I mean, he couldn't stay upright. Garrett Bowles, all pro, which is awesome. But the rest of the line, you're like,
yeah, especially the center position was giving up too much. Yeah, Drew wasn't rapping last year. I'm pretty sure he was singing Adele on the sideline. It was so bad. But, hello from the other side. But it was, It was a rough year, and Cushenberry being a rookie at the center position, that was tough, and he was constantly like, the worst game was that Falcons game. You watch Grady Jarrett just one hand Cushenberry right back into Drew Lock's lap like he wasn't even there. It was embarrassing, and so it just became a problem because you at the end of the season everybody knew sugar the A gaps, and you could and Denver wasn't going to be able to do anything, and that's Buffalo did that. They lined both guys up over the both those tackles up over the center and just came right up the middle, and it was shuts you down. So they need, if Cushenberry's going to be the guy, I need to get functionally stronger. They signed Brett Jones, the Vikings center, as a body, and then they drafted Quinn Meinerz, who I think is a favorite to win a job. We'll see. We'll see if he's able to do it or not, and get the belly on out there. But you got to have improved offensive line play, because what they did last year, even with Bowles playing at the level he did, it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and the offensive line has kind of been an issue with the Broncos for the past 5 years. When you say it's been we haven't had solid, consistent line play, whether it's injuries or just young players, scheme changes. I mean, it's been rough for the Broncos on offensive line. So hopefully that's something they can shore up here in the future. But you guys, your draft haul, okay, your first round pick, your cornerback from the University of Alabama, like, tell me about this guy. Like, I saw him, on draft night. He had his PlayStation. Was it PlayStation? His little
PS2.
PS2, man. Patrick Surtain. So, have you seen him in OTAs, and how is he progressing?
He's good. The first thing you notice about him is his size. Like, he's just so much bigger than all the other corners. Wow. In fact, he and Justin Simmons are basically the same size. He's built like a safety, so he kind of gives you like a hybrid. I think he's going to be used a little bit more like Minkah Fitzpatrick, where he's a corner, a safety, and they can move him around a little bit. Okay. I think that's what they're going to do, because I think Fuller and Callahan and are going to be the main, and Darby are going to be the corners. Right. And I think Surtain's going to be kind of a rotational, a little bit more of a chess piece as far as that stuff goes. Now, he'll play a lot of corner, but he'll be moved around a little bit, I think. Vic Fangio's made no secret last couple of years that he wants to move to 6 DBs as a base. Basically play dime as a base. Wow. Just because the division that you're in, I mean, you look at the tight ends, you got Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, you got to be able to match up with those guys. And so, having Surtain gives you a body that can match up. It's not going to get mauled. Like Bryce Callahan on Travis Kelce is not fair.
Right.
But you put Pat Surtain on him, now all of a sudden you got somebody who can get up there and fight with him for the ball and all that kind of stuff. And it's just tough to find somebody with a big enough body and enough speed that can cover those guys like that. So when you're in a division with those tight ends, and Hunter Henry was in that division, now he's with the Patriots, but it was a pretty tight end heavy division. So now you got guys that match up a little bit better. And I think Callahan's probably gone after this year, but it looks like right now he's going to be he's going to be moved around a little bit, play corner, play safety, whatever, and they'll figure it out. But I think watching him play, man, he's everything that was advertised. I get it. There were teams trying to trade up. I don't know if you guys heard on draft night, the Saints were trying to trade up, and everybody thought it was for a quarterback because, it's the Saints. They got like Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. But no, it was for Surtain. They were trying to trade up for the Surtain at the corner position. So, wow. It's one of those things where they got the guy, and I know everybody put him on Fields, but they were never going to draft Justin Fields. So, okay. That was another thing. It's just that, there's some other things there. They were never going to draft Justin, but they went out and got the guy in Surtain, and then they get the punishing running back around 2. Now Melvin's going to be the starter. But Melvin's going to be the starter, but Javonte will work his way in, and then he'll take over next year. And then they got Meinerz in round 3, who I've been a big fan of for a couple of years. A lot of people didn't know who he was because he was a Wisconsin Whitewater, but I knew one of his coaches, and his coach tipped me off to him about 2 years ago. Keep your eye on this guy. So I did. Nice. And sure enough, when I texted him that night, I was like, "Hey man, we got you." So I'm a big fan. I like most of the haul. I felt some of those day 3 gambles maybe they didn't need to make. The Kerry Vincent, Seth Williams stuff. We'll see. Just because there's no room. I mean, the Broncos are like 6 deep at receiver already. And 6 deep at corner. Like, I don't, those guys are just going to be practice squad guys. So, I like the draft for the most part. But, Surtain's been as advertised.
Well, that's good to know, man, because Justin Simmons is a beast. I love Justin Simmons, and the size between him and Patrick Surtain, man, that has to give Vic Fangio some options for disruption when it comes to matchups. And like you mentioned, having Travis Kelce, man, there's not many guys who can actually cover Travis Kelce as it is. So, I mean, you need a guy. I don't think we don't have a guy that can cover Travis Kelce, as we saw in the AFC Championship game. And we don't have a guy that can block their defensive tackle, Chris Jones. So there's that. We talk about that ad nauseum here, but it's really cool, man. Okay, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, Ben. A couple things I want to talk about. One, I want your training camp darling. All right. Who maybe an under the radar guy that most fans don't know about that you should keep your eye on. And then from there, we're going to go to the Broncos prediction. And then I want you to give your Bills prediction.
Okay. Training camp darling, like you talk about from a national perspective?
Sure. Or just something, for you being a former scout, something that you've seen, at some of the practices, or a guy that we should know about.
Well, Draymond Jones is going to have a big year. He's going to be starting now on that defensive line. It's going to be Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, Draymond Jones, and then you got Von and Bradley Chubb, and Von will be on Draymond's side. So Draymond's going to be in for a big year. He had 6.5 sacks, I think, last year at extremely limited reps. Look for him to have a monster year. He's going to become a household name this year. Other training camp guys that could be like training camp darlings, man. Tyree Cleveland, the wide receiver. I think he's going to wind up being Tim Patrick's replacement. And Tim's a guy who could, he could potentially get traded. I don't think he will, but potentially could be traded. Royce Freeman's probably going to get traded, the running back, just because they don't have room for him. But I think those are probably the names. Tyree Cleveland's he's a guy that he only had a few catches last year, but he's got special teams versatility as well. He's got a big body. He can be a contested catch guy. He's got some wheels, so that's somebody to keep your eye on. And then what was the other thing you asked for? A Broncos or a Bills prediction?
So Broncos prediction, and then before you give the Bills, I'm going to say something before you give the Bills prediction, and before we even continue in that, look, they're busting my chops because Ian Kelsey is silenced. Listen, let me tell you something. I'm from the South. I am from the South. You will forever be Kelsey, and I don't care.
they're messing with you too. Like the Kelseys are messing with people with that, but they'll figure that out. Like when Jason came out, and he was like, "I'm Jason Kelsey." Like they're messing. It's him and his brother. They're messing with people on that one. It's Kelsey, or at least it always has been, unless they just decided to change it. But as far as the Broncos, I think 9-10 wins. I think is possible. Maybe more if they get a few breaks, maybe less if Drew Lock sucks. But I think 9-10 wins is probably the number, the over-under to look at. And I think that's going to surprise people, because I think most people will probably have them closer to 8 wins, 7 wins, something like that, just based on seeing it. But they got a really easy schedule this year too, because they get that last place slate. So I think that's going to help them out a little bit. In terms of the Bills,
hold on, you can't give it yet, because I have to set this up.
All right, well let me ask one more Broncos question, because last year in the draft was one of my first years covering the entire draft and really looking into players. And my favorite player from the draft last year was Jerry Judy. So what do you think about him this year? Where is he at? Because, obviously with all the stuff that happened in his rookie year and all that, I don't think he got to see anything from the guy yet. And I'm really excited to see now if he gets that time to work, Drew, with the questions around Drew Lock maybe, but he's the player that I'm thinking about on the Broncos. Like, man, what's he going to do this year? Can I draft him in fantasy? That kind of thing, is because he was somebody I hitched my wagon to in that draft.
I think so. He's got to hang on to the football. That's the main thing. He can't drop the ball, and he's always had these softer throwers throwing in the ball. These guys with lower velocity, and he gets Drew Lock, who's got kind of a cannon. And I think that's what it was. I just don't think he was used to the ball getting in on him that fast. I don't think he's ever had that, because like watching him out here at OTAs with Teddy Bridgewater, catches everything he throws. But then, Drew doesn't necessarily catch everything he throws. So I think he's not used to the upper velocity throwers personally, but that's just my opinion. Is what it is. But as far as he goes, he's going to be good this year. And having Cortland over there, Cortland's really the leader of the offense. He really is. He holds people accountable. Like Cortland's always been that guy. Matter of fact, back when Manny Sanders was here, Emmanuel Sanders kind of loafed on a route one time, and Cortland went after him. Cortland went down there and said, "Man, what are you teaching these guys? Like, you're the veteran. You're the guy out here teaching these guys." And it led to a fist fight in training camp between the two receivers, because Emmanuel Sanders didn't like it showing up like that. But Cortland's that guy, and he'll hold you accountable. And so I think they needed that. They didn't have that last year. I think that'll help. And plus, Cortland will draw some coverage away from Judy too.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton's catch radius is unreal. Just the difficult catches he makes is incredible. So before we let you go, so everybody out there, Ben was one of the only guys that predicted in the national media the Bills going to the AFC Championship game. Okay, so Ben, let me tell you, man, like, do you know the fan base that you're talking to right now, Bills Mafia, how crazy, like, what? Based on what you say determines how many people end up in the hospital tonight, bro. So listen, I'm putting it on you. So based off of what you think and what right? What do you think about these Bills' chances this year?
Well, yeah, I actually got the whole AFC, almost the entire AFC playoff picture right. I definitely got the AFC championship game correct. Kansas City, Buffalo. This year, I think you're going to have a repeat of the same game. Kansas City, Buffalo. I think Kansas City is going to be the 1 seed. Buffalo will be number 2.
Okay. You know what I'm about to ask you, right?
Right.
Who's gonna win that game?
Yeah.
Just lie to me.
I hope for your sake it's a different outcome, but at this point, I would still lean Kansas City.
Right. Yeah, I think if we're all honest with ourselves, we probably would agree with you on that. Well, Ben, you got something else, Anthony?
The one related thing you brought up, Emmanuel Sanders, and obviously you have some interaction with him there. What are your expectations with him coming to this Buffalo offense? Do you have an expectation or what your thoughts are? I'll tell you what, when he did that first press conference interview, I've always been an Emmanuel Sanders fan when he was in Denver and loved watching him play, getting to go to those games and see his crisp route running and how much the quarterback relied on him. But when he did his first press conference, it blew me out of the water. I'm like, wow, this is a guy I want on this team right now. And I have big expectations coming in to this season for him, but was wondering your thoughts on that.
He's a good energy guy. He always brings that energy with him. Sometimes that wears a little thin after a while, but he brings the energy with him. He's going to be a guy that you can rely on for early catches in games, early chain mover type catches. You think of him more in the Cole Beasley role than anything else, to be honest with you. He's that guy you're going to go to when you need that first down. You need a reliable set of hands. I think that's the way. Don't look at him. He's not the same guy he used to be. He's not a 1,000-yard receiver. He's not that guy anymore. His knees are not what they used to be. But he can get, he can probably get you 500 yards and 5 touchdowns, but a lot of that's going to be critical catch situations. 500 yards, the 500 yards isn't always 500 yards. If it's 500 yards where you're helping convert in 3rd and 8 all the time, it's a lot more valuable than some guy that got 500 junk yards and garbage time. So he's probably an early in the game chain mover type guy and sets stuff up when he starts getting open and they adjust their coverages. That sets stuff up for Diggs to get that one-on-one on the outside deep, and that's when you take your chance.
All right. All right, Ben. So you've been fantastic, man. Thank you so much. Before you go, can you tell our fans how to follow your work and what you do? If you're in the Denver area or you want to listen to the show, it's called Broncos Country Tonight, but we do national, football coverage. You can listen to that on the iHeart app or on KOA. And of course, there's a Twitter account. You can unfollow that at Albright NFL. It's like the worst thing out there. It's a dumpster fire. I wouldn't follow me. So, yeah.
He's lying to you guys.
Yeah, he's lying.
Excellent NFL.
Ben always keeps it real. Ben keeps it real, and he's a Southern man at heart, and you can hear it in his voice. So Ben, thank you, man, for taking your time, man. We really appreciate this. Bills Mafia appreciates this, man, and enjoy the new wife. I didn't get to congratulate you on that. I know that happened a little while ago, but congrats and enjoy your season, man. We'll talk soon. All right, guys. All right, later. Again. Take care. All right. So that was awesome, man. That was really cool. Ben he's a dope dude, man. Ben is awesome for sure. Ben he's legit, man. So with that being said, let's get into this Bills talk. Okay. So that was a special, we talked about the Broncos. Now it's time to get into these Bills. All right. So it's training camp time, man. Like, I don't think that this is the first training camp that where we can say the Bills are the actual hunted. We haven't seen this in a long time. You're already seeing national eyes, national perspective talk about these Bills all the time. The excitement is through the roof. We're about to see real football, preseason, and so forth. So, Anthony, with that being said, let's talk about training camp crush. Who is your training camp crush? Who you got?
Define crush. You mean a player that I'm keeping my eye on and want to see and want to do well, or okay.
Look, we're having fun. We're having fun now.
The first name that comes to mind for me is F.A. Obada. Believe it or not, that was somebody who, when the Bills signed him, I'm like, first of all, this guy I didn't know really who he was that much. I knew he was with Carolina, but who's this guy again? And then you look at his stats, you look at some of his tape, and you're like, wow, this guy's actually good. And he would have led the Bills in sacks last year. And obviously the defensive line in general for the Bills is one of the big storylines that I'm following. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of good guys. And F.A. Obada coming in, I want him to make this team. I want him to see him play for the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. because I think he can do great things in this defense. But that means at the same time, my mind is thinking, okay, who do you cut on the defensive line?
No, you can't. No.
Obada.
You will not do that yet.
Well, I just mean,
not do that yet.
if you keep Obada, which I really want to do, there is a cost to that. So there is this thought in my head. He's the first name that comes to mind. Let him shine, make it so they have to keep him and make a difficult decision.
All right, so you're going with F.A.
He's
Obada.
one that comes to mind right away.
Yeah. And it's like we have a lot of candidates to fit this training camp crush. You know who my training camp crush this year is? Marquez Stevenson. Now, like I just love speed. You know how I was a big Henry Ruggs stan. You know, I love speedy wide receivers. And you know, the funny thing is, you know, I think any or most NFL players will tell you, you know, I run faster than my 40 time, right? And we saw Marquez Stevenson run a 4.45 in the 40-yard dash. On tape, it seems as if he's faster than what he ran. Okay, Devin Hester I'm not comparing him to Devin Hester, but in terms of speed, Devin Hester was a lot faster than what his 40 time was. Mm-hmm. And so you think of guys like Tyreek Hill, late round pick, known as a fast guy. You know, Marquez Stevenson, when you watch him on the field, I mean, there's some glimpses you're like, damn, this dude can fly. I mean, he's just explosive. He's an explosive athlete. So guys like that in this offense with Josh Allen, even I'm not saying Marquez Stevenson is gonna be anything special, but I'm just saying I am intrigued. I want to hear about what he's gonna do, just like last year. Isaiah Hodgins, you know, it was Gabriel Davis, right?
Just brought up another name that I was going to say too. Yeah, Hodgins is one that you want to see it now. We have to, now that we're going to get more coverage, or maybe, and at least a few more days where the fans get to see it. You want to see those guys shine. Isaiah Hodgins is another one that I'm going to be keeping my eyes on, and at the same time, his the same draft year partner, Dane Jackson, is a guy who's on this team now. He's pretty much a roster lock at this point, which is crazy to think based on where he was drafted last year. But just to see what he can do in that competition for CB2, and probably what will end up being more of a rotational time with Levi, who I expect to win the job. But I still want to see Dane Jackson in action and see, like, okay, this guy shined when he was on the field for the Bills last year. Let's see what he can do against competition in training camp and in these preseason games and everything. It's going to be exciting to watch for sure.
We got a Boogie Basham watch here. Lone Wolf says he's going for Boogie again. I can't call Carlos. I can't call Carlos, or I can't call him Boogie, because he gotta do something for me to give him that dope ass nickname.
But
go ahead.
I think I was just going to say those are the rookies. Those are the low hanging fruit. I think your answer was a good one, because we don't know where he's going to fit on this roster. But obviously Basham and Rousseau, those are two guys who are pretty much roster locks, and they need to show stuff, and we're all going to be watching them. So that's why I didn't say them. Respect, though, for bringing them up, because they're definitely guys that we're all going to be watching.
And Marcus Stevens is more likely going to be on the practice squad. I mean, let's be honest. He's probably, that's where he's going to end up, unless he just blows everybody out of the water.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He is a guy to watch, because if he plays well enough and makes flashy enough plays, he's going to make it so that you can't cut this guy. Somebody else is going to get him if you try and put him on the practice squad. You need to make that tough decision again at the wide receiver position, and presumably he would also be the return person if he's getting onto the roster. So, that leaves, who's the short end of the stick there, McKenzie or one of these other guys. It's a good conversation.
And we're going to get into that maybe in the coming weeks as we narrow our give you guys our 53-man roster here live on the Hoof. We're definitely going to be doing that just like last year. Surprise cut candidate. Okay, now listen. I mean, when you have a stacked roster like these Buffalo Bills, there's going to be guys where there's always somebody who you're like, I didn't foresee them getting cut, right? There's always that guy. Like, I mean, there's been so many, LaShawn McCoy. We didn't see him. We didn't think he was going to get cut when he did. The whole Patrick DeMarco cut was, for me, I was like, I thought McDermott just loved his fullbacks, right? But we saw.
I called that one, though. I knew that
you
one
did.
was coming.
Pat DeMarco, bye-bye, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, like, so who is your surprise cut candidate?
This one is, you know what? I hope it's nobody, because I hope knowing the mind of Brandon Beane, I hope he ends up trading these guys that we could, because we have so much talent, as we've already said, at the defensive line position. Somebody there is going to go. If you keep F.A. Obada, the guy I love, then who are you cutting? Daryl Johnson, who's a special teams stalwart out there for the Bills and definitely will get on another roster somewhere. The list goes on. I mean, Zimmer, who flashed for the Bills and made big plays, you cut him. I hope that they end up trading these guys for something, even if it's a 6th, 5th round pick, get something for those guys. Same thing can be said of the offensive line. And I think here's where the surprise could come, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe I don't know. Let's say there's a competition at camp and Forrest Lamp looks good out there, right? And they're like, we can't cut this guy. He's going to make the roster. He's playing the best 5 of the guards. He's going to be one of our guards. John Feliciano, your contract is team friendly. It's trade friendly. See you later. You're cut or you're traded, right? And I don't think that's going to happen to Feliciano per se, because he has more intangibles that I think the team likes, as well as his ability to play. But he could be that guy, and so could any of those offensive linemen, other than our 2 starting tackles, I think. So, it's going to be interesting to see how the offensive line plays out as well. I've been using that word a lot, but it's the beginning of training camp, so there's a lot of anticipation right now, right?
Yeah. So my surprise cut candidate, it would have to be Mario Addison. He's a 33-year-old defensive end coming off of restructured contract, his lowest statistical output that he's had in years. If he's cut, the Bills, recoup $6.1 million, and I think it's $4 million in dead cap space. So they would get $6.17 million. Is it
that high?
Yeah.
You ran the numbers there? I have not run the numbers, but I thought usually when a player restructures, they get so much more guaranteed, and then it's the next year or something.
No, basically,
Beane loves doing that. We'll give you fully guaranteed this year, but the rest of your contract is voided, right? So then we can cut you at the end of the year with no loss, basically.
Yeah, he basically took like a $1.9 million pay cut to have his contract restructured, because they probably was like, look, dude, we're probably going to cut you. And I mean, knowing, I don't know if this happened before the draft or after the draft. I think it was before the draft is when his restructure happened. And then they go out and they draft 2 defensive ends. So the writing's on the wall for Addison. You have your leader in Jerry Hughes. He's the emotional leader. He sets the tone. He's a cornerstone of that defensive line. So, I mean, really, like, what is Addison here for? And Vernon Butler is another guy that I could say it's time. I mean, what did you do? I was more on the train of keep Quentin Jefferson.
Yes.
Right?
I think we all were.
Then Vernon Butler. Like, why? Why are we keeping Vernon Butler? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I agree on Butler. Addison, I think, would be the more key of a piece that they want to keep for this year again. And then they made the contract so that they can cut ties at the end of the season without losing much. So I think that's going to happen with Addison. Butler, again, because he reworked the deal, I don't know the specifics of that. We're going to have to ask our guy Greg to run the numbers there and see exactly what's going on, because Butler's another one. When you have, again, we talked about it already, this defensive line is absolutely stacked. So are you really going to give up on more talent in a guy like F.A. Obada or somebody who's contributed more, like a Zimmer, for Butler, who's a bad contract, or Addison, who didn't live up to expectations? It's really hard. I believe that Addison can do better than what he did last year, given the situation, right? With the pieces around him being better, I think Addison can take that next step. Butler was an extreme disappointment. I'm with you there, that I don't know that there is an upside there.
Hold on. So American Toth is in here, and he says, go Titans. Okay. Listen. No.
Welcome to the Hoof Podcast.
Thank you for watching the show, but y'all got Julio, which is dope. Derrick Henry's he's the man, but I think our Bills will get you. That's all I'm saying.
If not in the regular season, we'll see in the playoffs.
We're gonna get you in the playoffs.
That's right.
Yeah. I think the Bills are gonna get them. And then Zeus says, is that a threat? I don't know what you're talking about, bro. F.A. Obada, a mutant. Yeah, my guy is F.A. Obada is a dude. He looks the part, man. Yeah, he looks the freaking part, right?
And acts the part. That's why he's one of the guys I'm super high on. I want him to make this roster. Of all the guys that are on the cut line, I think he's the one that I really want to see on this roster. Him and Isaiah Hodgins, I want to make the roster. But in terms of the competition, those are two of the spots, wide receiver and defensive line, where something has to give. You can't keep all of those guys.
Okay, so one guy I want to talk about before we get out of here is Dane Jackson.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that's just under the radar, right? Mm-hmm. We saw him in very little action last year. But the fact that the Bills didn't make a move in free agency or the draft, really, I mean, they got Wild Goose, but I mean, he was a late round pick, so you're like, But it sounds like, from everything we've heard from Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, they're really high on Dane Jackson. So I'm really anxious to see how him and Levi Wallace, how they battle out. I mean, I think he has a really good shot to be CB2, Levi Wallace is not a horrible CB2 at all. I think he's average, right? He's just limited physically, but he's an average corner and can get the job done, So Dane Jackson, Anthony, do you think he can make? What do you think? Is he going to be CB2
I think
or what?
At this point, he's a lock to make the roster. It's a question of, is he going to be the starter? I think the way Sean McDermott plays it is conservative. So I think Levi will be the starter, meaning Levi's playing snap one in game one. But I do think Dane Jackson it's basically going to be a 50-50 rotational type of situation. And we've seen Levi, although he has been great over the years, and I do expect him to have the trust of the team more, the coaches more than a guy like Dane Jackson. Dane Jackson, when he's on there, he's producing. And this is a guy, right? It's the best story on the Bills by far, one of them at least, because he's a last round pick for the Bills and nobody expects him to even do anything or make the team. It comes to an urgent situation. They get him. He gets the playing time and you're like, damn, he just went up against some of the best receivers in the league and made plays. He batted that ball down against DK Metcalf. He did this, and it's, when he flashes like that, and the team, the coaches have in the offseason hyped him up as well. We love this guy. We love his talents, what he's shown. I mean, you have to be excited to see what he can do in this competition.
Yeah, and Dane Jackson having shows better ball skills. I don't know, man. Levi Wallace is not bad when it comes to ball skills. And if for whatever we want to say about Levi not being athletically gifted as some of these other NFL corners, he's always where he's supposed to be. And I think that's one of the reasons why Sean McDermott loves him. Undrafted guy, he's proven himself. He's where he's supposed to be. His ball skills are actually pretty good. So I'm gonna have to see more from Dane Jackson in an aspect we're gonna gauge his ball skills, but it's not a bad problem to have. I mean, I think, if Dane Jackson, I think that's the thing that'll separate him in training camp. If who can show better ball skills, right? I think that's important because at that CB2 spot on this team, you're going to see a lot of targets being thrown your way. So I think that's gonna matter here in this race.
Speaking of cornerback, by the way, what are your thoughts on Taron Johnson coming into this season, where it's the last season of his contract? I don't expect him to be back with the Bills next year, which to me means if somebody shines that is a potential replacement for him, you could trade him and maybe recoup something if you have faith in one of these other guys. I don't fully expect that to happen. I'm not predicting that to happen, but it's a discussion to be had when you draft another cornerback in Wild Goose, and we're talking about this strong competition at CB2, although obviously where Taron plays is a little bit different. So I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Listen, hold on, man. Hold on, man.
Come on.
Hey, hell, my ex had good ball skills. Hey, you ain't lying, huh? Hey. I guess this is how the cookie crumbles, my guy.
He misses her too.
Yeah. Hey, Nick says she's an X for a reason. Yeah. Hey, that's facts. And he's like, going to throw that trick on the practice squad while you at it too. Nick G said, put on the practice squad. Put on the practice squad. I'm gonna call you.
Make the roster. Wow.
I'm gonna call you on every other Thursday. You come holler at me. Okay. So you were asking me about Taron Johnson. So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's his last year. It depends on what the salary cap is going to be, but I think Taron Johnson is going to demand he's got playoff experience.
Exactly.
That's why I'm thinking he's shown improvement.
He probably has high trade value right now. If they believe in somebody,
they're not going to trade
good enough to take his place.
They're not going to trade.
I don't fully expect that to happen either, but it has to at least be a thought in our minds with the depth that we now have at that position, not necessarily his position. Again, there's other guys that could play there too, but interesting storyline in this whole season for sure.
Yeah. I want to see if Taron Johnson can take that next step forward. I would love to, end of the season, we're talking about Taron Johnson being one of the top 10 slot corners in the NFL. That would be awesome. I think right now he's probably
a good problem to have.
he's probably, between the 15 to 20 range, I would say. So if he could take that next step, it is a contract year, like you mentioned, and typically guys in those contract years, they definitely want to ball out. So, I mean, I think, Taron's in a great position. I mean, he's surrounded by a really good defense. So he's going to have opportunities to make plays. And I think it's one of those things, if he can take that next step, the Bills are going to be, man, that defense can really come back to form from a few years ago, and Sean McDermott's typically had really good defenses. We had COVID and, just a lot of question. Star was out, just new guys on the defensive line trying to fulfill roles. I mean, hopefully we see, a resurgence from this defensive line and this defense overall, because if the Bills, think about this, if the Bills can field a top 5 defense with that offense,
unbelievable, you
can beat Kansas City. You can win a Super Bowl. I mean, and that's not me being a homer. I always try to keep it real, but let's be honest. If you can bring that intensity and you could be a top 5 defense with a top 5 offense, man, that's special. That's real special. That's real special. So it'll be something to see.
I brought this up on Anthony Prohaska's show, Disguised Coverage, this past week when I was on with him and Aaron Quinn, and we were going through the schedule, that the Bills are a good enough team this year that it's not homer to say they're going to win the Super Bowl. You just heard Benjamin Allbright say they're making at least the AFC Championship game against Kansas City. And now if we're saying we think they can take that next step, guess what? That's Super Bowl. All you have to do is beat Kansas City. I mean, obviously, that's not what we have to do.
That's a Herculean.
Games. It is. It is still a big step to take, but I believe that it's not crazy to say that anymore. We don't have to preface that anymore.
Look,
the Buffalo Bills are legitimate Super Bowl contenders.
All I got to do is put my pants on and go to work in the morning. Like, I mean, Kansas City's a dog. I mean, we see that. We know that. I mean, they shored up their offensive line. That their defense is, they're good in all the right places, and they draft well. That's something that we want to see some of the return on some of these Brandon Beane draft picks. Continue to see that. I mean, I think that's one of the things that's going to help you overcome, salary cap situations where you got good players coming in. And I think Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have done a great job of restocking the cupboard of talent, and they try to keep their own too. So, but you can't keep everybody. And I think we're going to start seeing guys that we love or Bills Mafia is accustomed to seeing. We're going to start seeing some of those guys in the next few years. They're probably not going to be Bills anymore. I mean, that's just the way it is. Let's see. What else we got in here in the chat? Epinesa. Yeah. Epinesa's intriguing. I think that, I think you're going to see him play more at his weight this year, that he, around the 270 range is what I expect to see him come in at. I think he played a little too light last year. He wasn't used to that. So, I think now he's had a solid offseason to prepare. I think we should see him around the 270 range, and he's going to really settle into that defensive end position. But that's another guy that if he could take another step forward, not a huge step, but just marginally better, I think is going to pay dividends for this defense.
Right. That's a typical McBean growth curve too, right? You have a rookie, he comes in, he's your first pick, second round, but first pick of that draft. And he comes in and he's inactive the first 2 games of the season, right? And now he started to grow during the season. They played with his weights. They were like, okay, here's what we need you to do. He was trying to find his groove, and then he showed flashes. So now coming in this year, now that they're like, okay, now it's time to take that next step, see where your growth is. We got this fixed in. Now let's get this going. And that's the typical McBean growth curve right there. That's what we want to see. Just take that next step, because next year, meaning 2022 season, you're going to be the guy. You're going to be the starter. Right. So, yeah, and I think they're grooming him to do that, and definitely a player to watch. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that one up.
So this comment here is from a really good friend of mine, my guy Paul. He's a high school basketball coach, man. Been friends for some years, but Paul's one of the realest I know. But he says they need to trade Singletary while he has some sort of value. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in me that says keep Devin Singletary. And I've been a Devin Singletary stan since they drafted him, but I mean, I got to be realistic. Like, I mean,
for me, the one issue with that is who do you have? So obviously Zach Moss has some injury history and injury problems. So he's probably not going to be. You're not going to trade Singletary and say, okay, Zach Moss is now the bell cow. Are you talking now we're bringing in Antonio Williams and Zach Moss, or now we're doing the Matt Breida's taking that spot and Antonio Williams and Zach Moss? So it's a tough situation. I'm still a Singletary stan saying he needs to be on this roster, and he's still producing, and he is good enough to be on this team and produce, not just be the guy who's carrying the ball, right?
I think Singletary gives you a 5th-round value right now. I think he's solid, right? He's nothing. There's nothing that he does that's special. He's a guy. He's a guy. And we wanted more. I wanted more, right?
Definitely.
But when you hear reports like, he's working really hard. Everybody, I mean, I'm sure all these guys are working really hard. And I don't know, maybe we've seen pictures of him on Instagram. He's kind of changed his body composition. Mm-hmm. So let's see what he does. I mean, I don't think he's going to get traded, but it wouldn't be surprising to see. I mean, Brandon Beane has swung trades in training camp.
Sure.
But again, what is Matt Breida going to show you? What is Zach Moss going to show you? Is Antonio Williams a guy, yes, right? Those things matter. So I think we won't know until we start seeing what kind of rolls out in training camp.
Yeah, and Singletary, to me, again, I think he makes this roster because of his talent and what he can do, and his body changes. He's coming into year 3. I know running backs have a shorter adjustment period to the NFL. Usually they can come in day 1 and play pretty much. But, this is his magical year 3. So this is put up or shut up time for me for Singletary. That's why I want to see him on this roster. Because if he's just as mediocre this year as he was last year for the most part, then guess what? It's time to move on, and we will draft a running back next year to pair with Moss or whoever else might still be on the roster. But for me, I have to see that Singletary isn't the guy before I give up on him going into year 3, because he was a 3rd-round pick. So trading him for a 5th-round pick is a net loss. You pick the wrong guy if you have to do that. And I'm not sure that the Bills, and I'm certainly not ready to say that at this point.
Okay, so let me hit you with a little something real quick. Okay, so you know how like when we're in training camp and what you think going into training camp versus like after the 53-man roster, everything's settled, and you go, huh? I wish I would have seen that, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Those like, damn, like. So keep that in your mind, and I'm gonna tell you where I'm going with this. But there's a player that I think that we're gonna be like, damn, I wish I would have. Okay, I see you, and I'm gonna tell you who that player is for me. And then I'm gonna
guess the position.
Okay, guess the position.
Is it a safety?
No, it's not the safety. All right. It's not the safety, and it's Spencer Brown. Ooh. I think Spencer Brown. Think about it. Okay. Spencer Brown's
a big dude.
Offensive, big guy, offensive tackle, right? You got your 2 bookend tackles, right? Darrell Williams, right? Deion Dawkins. But one thing that we miss, we do not have Lee Smith. Mm. Lee Smith was used as that extra offensive lineman who can occasionally catch passes. Now, I think that Spencer Brown is going to come into that Lee Smith role this year. They're going to dress him, right? You see, like Lee Smith was out some games when they wanted to go heavy, right? In some certain situations. I think he's gonna be the Lee Smith this year. He offers you more athletic upside, right?
And he's a huge dude.
And he's a big dude. And he's
I wouldn't mind that guy plowing in front of me if I'm a running back. That's for sure.
I'm not saying he's going to have a massive impact. All I'm saying is, when we think, or I think, oh yeah, Darrell Williams, right tackle.
Yeah.
Right. He could, if something happens, he's going to have to spell right tackle. He's going to have to spell Darrell Williams. So I think it's something to monitor as we go. I mean, hopefully, being a 3rd-round pick, you want to see him thrive, you want to see him flourish. But I think he's going to be one of those guys that we don't know if he's going to play until game day, kind of thing, kind of like Lee Smith was last year. Who's your guy?
Well, I said the safety position because that's where I thought you were going when you started that conversation. I think obviously they drafted DeMar Hamlin, and he's a great second to what I think are the best tandem of safeties in the NFL for us, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, obviously. But I thought you were going, okay, who's going to be that next guy, right? Who's going to step up, bring out some name like Tyreek Thompson or, who's the other guy maintaining for the position that I can't think of right now. But the safety position is another interesting one when it comes to the depth and who has the ability to step up that we might be saying during the season, like, man, I'm so glad we kept this guy and that he was the one who made the roster above some of these other names that we've already mentioned at wide receiver or, offensive line or whatever position it may be that we end up cutting. So I think safety is a sneaky position this year, the bottom end of the safety depth, obviously, that, always plays an important role in this defense one way or another, but could be a name that sees some action and does something special for us.
Yeah, I mean, man, we're just having fun here. It's always fun to just speculate, and just be fans for a little while, right? Like, just be like, oh man, like the sky is blue. Oh,
thank you, Zeus, for that.
Oh, what did you say?
Duke Williams. The answer you're looking for is Duke Williams. Williams has to make the roster as a fullback, as a tight end, and now as a safety. Go Duke Williams.
Oh, man. The Duke Williams experiment is over. I'm sorry.
We're beyond those days.
I think we're done. I think we're done with the whole
practice squad,
the whole Duke thing, man.
Keep him on the practice squad. I don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, sure. By all means. I just, yeah, absolutely, man. You root for guys like him, man. It's a good story, but him making the 53, it ain't happening. Not that anybody's out there saying that, but I know who's not making the 53. He's a running back, and I'm not going to. You know how they were like Voldemort? They didn't want to say the dude's name.
Oh, I know.
I ain't gonna say his name. I ain't gonna do it. Okay, and y'all in the chat better not do it either. I don't even want to see it. So with that being said, man. Anthony, it's been fantastic.
What a show. This has been great.
It's been
hype, man. The hype is lifting. You can feel it. It's tangible. Do you feel it? Because I feel it. I know that.
Yeah.
It's tangible right now.
I am, and myself and Bills Mafia, we're all waiting for the Anthony fandom and homerism to start to get into midseason form. So, Anthony, you don't have on the Bills suit, but we expect as we get closer the homerism take over. So you have work to do.
Who had more correct takes last offseason than anybody?
I did.
No, you did not. Not even close, brother. And
oh my God!
You can go back to the tape, brother, because everything I said was right. That's right. Let's go back to you don't have to. Go back and listen to the episodes. Go back and give us tick marks on the episodes because everybody thought I was crazy with the shit I was saying, and 90% of it came true.
Well, you still are. You're still
90% of it came true.
You're still crazy. Okay,
yeah, that part may be true.
No, you definitely had some. Your predictions were lofty, and the Bills met those expectations, man. They did. I'm not gonna hate. You definitely did. You definitely did. I ain't gonna hate there, but yeah, I think this year coming into it, man, I think it's gonna be fun regardless, and the fact that we have football coming up, even in just a few weeks, right? Mm-hmm. We're gonna see Bills preseason football. We didn't have preseason football last
year, and now everybody hated the preseason. Now we're begging for preseason just to see these young guys and see some plays and scout some players a little better, especially with Bills limiting these training camps and everything to only like 3 practices. The preseason games are our chance to see these guys in real action and evaluate them for ourselves with our own eyes, which is always nice.
And you know what, though? And we're going to get to see a lot more of our rookie class because our roster's so loaded that those guys are going to have to play in the preseason. They're going to have to play. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch, man. It's going to be fun to watch. I watch the preseason very intently, very closely, just like a lot of you guys do. But before we spill the beans for anything else, Anthony, we are going to sign off here. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Hoof Podcast. We have a lot of great things coming this season. We're going to be giving away jerseys every month starting week 4. We're going to start giving away jerseys, and we're going to tell you guys how you could win a jersey from Cover One and the Hoof Live guys. So we got some really cool things. We're going to have guests throughout the season. Just like you saw, Benjamin Allbright come hang out with us tonight. we want to definitely have, different guys come on and hang out with us. But none of this is possible without the support of you guys. And so we say thank you so much for all the support, hitting us up on Twitter and all that. And Cover One Network has been kind to us. So with that being said, Anthony, I think it's time to sign off. I have to start packing because I'm moving. So there's that.
I drove from Denver to Syracuse twice this week, and that was quite an interesting adventure. So moving is never fun. I hope it goes much smoother for you than it did for me.
I hate it. Put me in a coma. And wake me up next week, man. Like, for real. I hate moving. I hate packing stuff, but it is what it is. New job start is going great so far. So, good things happening for all of us, man. And we hope the same is happening to you guys, the fans. So with that being said, for real, we getting out of here. Peace.
Go Bills. Go Bills.